After 50, something inside you begins to go quiet. Not your voice, not your ambition, not your memories, something far deeper. A molecule that has fueled you since birth begins to collapse. You don't see it on your skin, you don't hear it in your joints, but you feel it. Recovery takes longer, energy feels thinner, mental sharpness flickers, sleep doesn't restore you the way it once did. You tell yourself it's normal, you tell yourself it's age, but aging is not what most people think it is. Aging is not simply the passing of time. It is the gradual failure of repair. Inside every cell in your body is a molecule called NAD+. It is not famous, it is not marketed on billboards, but it is essential for life itself. NAD+ powers your mitochondria, the microscopic engines that turn food into energy. Without NAD+, your cells cannot produce ATP efficiently. Without ATP, you do not move, think, repair, or survive. But NAD+ does something even more profound. It activates sirtuins, a family of proteins often called longevity guardians. Sirtuins repair damaged DNA. They stabilize your epigenome, the system that tells genes when to turn on and off. They regulate inflammation. They preserve cellular identity. They keep your biological software from corrupting. And after 50, NAD+ levels begin to drop, not slightly, significantly. Studies show NAD+ can decline by up to 50% between youth and older age. When NAD+ declines, sirtuins go quiet. When sirtuins go quiet, damage accumulates. DNA breaks remain unrepaired. Mitochondria become inefficient. Cells lose communication clarity. Inflammation rises silently. This is not cosmetic aging. This is information loss. Imagine your DNA as a library. Every cell contains the same book, the same genetic code. But what makes a brain cell different from a muscle cell is which pages are being read. Over time, the bookmarks fall out. The wrong chapters get opened. Instructions blur. Cells forget who they are. This is the information theory of aging. And NAD+ is part of the repair crew that keeps the bookmarks in place. Without it, biological noise increases. Now here's what almost no one talks about. The collapse of NAD+ is not purely fate. It is influenced by how you live. Your cells are not passive victims of time. They are responsive. They listen. They respond to stress, to movement, to fasting, to light, to sleep. For most of human history, survival required effort. We moved constantly. We experienced hunger. We endured cold nights and hot days. We lived by sunlight and darkness. These environmental stressors activated survival pathways, including those that preserved NAD+. Modern life has removed many of those signals. We eat all day. We sit for hours. We avoid discomfort. We live under artificial light long past sunset. Comfort feels safe. Biologically, it can be destabilizing because the body evolved to expect challenge. Without challenge, it downregulates repair. Without repair, aging accelerates. NAD+ doesn't just collapse because you turned 50. It declines because your biology is no longer being asked to adapt the way it once did. Youth is not defined by years. Youth is defined by responsiveness. A young organism adapts quickly, repairs quickly, recovers quickly. An aging organism loses that responsiveness. The tragedy is not aging. The tragedy is the loss of adaptation. And adaptation can be trained. When you exercise intensely, your cells experience energy stress. AMPK activates, a metabolic sensor that detects low energy states. AMPK stimulates mitochondrial growth. It promotes fat oxidation. It supports NAD+ regeneration. When you fast strategically, insulin drops. Cells shift from growth mode into repair mode. Autophagy activates, a cellular cleanup process that removes damaged proteins and dysfunctional mitochondria. This process depends on metabolic signals deeply intertwined with NAD+. When you expose yourself briefly to cold or heat, stress response proteins activate. Heat shock proteins, cold shock proteins, adaptive enzymes, all part of an ancient survival toolkit. Your body is not fragile, it is adaptive, but only when given the right signals. After 50, if those signals disappear, NAD plus continues to fall. Energy declines, repair slows, and aging accelerates. But if those signals return, if you deliberately reintroduce stress, intelligently, strategically, something remarkable happens. The collapse slows, the repair crew returns, the cellular noise quiets, you begin reclaiming control. This is not about chasing youth. It is about preserving function. It is about maintaining the ability to move freely at 70, to think clearly at 80, to remain independent at 90. And it begins with understanding that aging is not passive. It is programmable. Your biology is not a clock ticking down. It is a system responding to inputs. The question is not whether NAD plus declines. The question is whether you allow it to decline unchecked, or whether you send a new signal, a signal that says repair, adapt, survive, and thrive. The moment you understand that aging is driven by repair failure, everything changes, because repair failure is not random. It follows pathways, and pathways can be influenced. After 50, NAD plus doesn't just decline because of time. It declines because of chronic energy surplus, inactivity, disrupted sleep, and constant stimulation. Your cells evolved for cycles, cycles of stress and recovery, cycles of feeding and fasting, cycles of light and darkness. When those cycles flatten, biology becomes confused. Insulin remains elevated from constant eating. Cortisol spikes from chronic psychological stress. Artificial light suppresses melatonin. Sedentary hours reduce mitochondrial demand. And when demand drops, supply follows. NAD plus is tied to metabolic demand. When energy turnover is low, the body produces less of it. When stress is absent, sirtuins are not activated. The body conserves. And in that conservation, decline begins. But introduce the right kind of stress and the system wakes up. This is hormesis, a word that describes one of the most powerful principles in longevity science. Small doses of adversity strengthen the organism. Large doses destroy it. No adversity weakens it. Strength training is hormesis. When you lift something heavy, muscle fibers experience microscopic damage. Calcium floods the cell. Energy demand spikes. AMPK senses the deficit. The cell responds by building more mitochondria. More mitochondria means more energy capacity. More energy capacity means better repair. NAD plus recycling increases. Sirtuins activate. The genetic maintenance crew goes back to work. This is not theoretical, it is measurable. Older adults who engage in resistance training show improved mitochondrial density, improved insulin sensitivity, and better functional outcomes. Strength is not vanity, it is metabolic authority. Fasting operates on a similar axis. When you fast for a controlled period of 14-16 hours, insulin falls. Growth pathways quiet, repair pathways rise, autophagy increases. Autophagy is cellular renewal. It dismantles damaged proteins. It removes dysfunctional mitochondria. It clears debris that would otherwise accumulate and create inflammation. Without autophagy, cells age faster. With it, cells regain clarity. NAD plus plays a role here too. Low energy states increase reliance on NAD plus dependent pathways. Repair is prioritized over growth, but this must be strategic. After 50, muscle preservation is critical. Protein intake becomes non-negotiable. Older muscle is less sensitive to protein stimulation. It requires higher quality intake, adequate leucine. Consistent resistance stimulus. Fasting without strength training can accelerate muscle loss. and muscle loss accelerates mortality. So the equation is not starvation, it is balance. Stress followed by nourishment, effort followed by sleep, challenge followed by recovery. Cold exposure introduces another signal. Brief cold immersion elevates norepinephrine dramatically. This sharpens focus, improves mood, enhances metabolic flexibility. Brown adipose tissue activates. Mitochondria within brown fat generate heat by burning fuel inefficiently, a process that improves glucose handling. Heat exposure works differently. Sauna use increases heart rate similarly to moderate exercise. Heat shock proteins increase. These proteins repair damaged cellular components and improve protein stability. Studies in certain populations have shown correlations between regular sauna use and reduced cardiovascular mortality. But again, these are tools. Tools require intention. The real transformation happens when these interventions become identity, when movement is not optional, when sleep is protected, when food is chosen with awareness, because sleep is the silent amplifier of everything else. During deep sleep, growth hormone pulses, tissue repair accelerates, the glymphatic system clears metabolic waste from the brain. Chronic sleep restriction increases insulin resistance, elevates inflammatory markers, suppresses NAD plus dependent repair. Light governs sleep. Morning sunlight anchors your circadian rhythm. It tells your brain the day has begun. It synchronizes cortisol release. It sets the timer for melatonin production later. Evening darkness allows melatonin to rise. Melatonin is not just a sleep hormone, it is an antioxidant, a regulator of mitochondrial function, a protector against oxidative stress. Late night artificial light confuses this system. Repair is delayed, inflammation rises, NAD plus pathways strain. Your biology runs on rhythm. Break rhythm long enough and systems drift, but restore rhythm and coherence returns, and coherence is youth. After 50, the collapse of NAD plus is not an irreversible sentence. It is a signal that your body is asking for engagement. It is asking for demand, for movement, for metabolic challenge, for structured recovery. The body does not reward passivity, it rewards adaptation, and adaptation begins the moment you decide to participate. Not casually, not occasionally, but deliberately. The collapse can slow, the repair systems can reawaken, but only if you send the message. And the message is simple: I am not done adapting. You are not a fixed structure. You are a dynamic system in constant negotiation with your environment. Every breath, every meal, every step, every hour of sleep or lack of it, your cells are tallying inputs. After 50, the margin for error narrows, not because your body is fragile, but because the buffer is thinner. NAD plus levels have already declined. Mitochondria are slightly less efficient. Stem cell pools are smaller. The question becomes simple. Do you continue draining the system, or do you begin rebuilding it? Metabolic health is the bridge. Chronic elevation of insulin is one of the most powerful accelerators of aging. Constant grazing keeps insulin high. High insulin keeps growth pathways active. When growth pathways stay chronically activated, repair pathways stay suppressed. mTOR is one such pathway. mTOR promotes growth and protein synthesis. In youth, this is essential. In later life, chronic mTOR activation without interruption can accelerate aging. But suppress mTOR too aggressively and muscle deteriorates. The solution is not elimination, it is rhythm. Resistance training briefly activates mTOR to build muscle. Fasting periods suppress it to encourage repair. This oscillation creates balance. Balance preserves function. NAD plus thrives in balance. When energy demand increases through intense muscular contraction, AMPK activates. AMPK shifts the body into energy conservation and mitochondrial creation mode. It encourages cells to burn fat. It stimulates NAD plus regeneration. It activates sirtuins. It tells your body, we need efficiency. Efficiency slows aging. Mitochondria are central to this story. They are not just energy producers. They are signaling hubs. They communicate with the nucleus. They influence inflammation. They determine how resilient a cell is under stress. With age, mitochondria accumulate damage. They become fragmented, less capable, more prone to leaking reactive oxygen species. Without sufficient NAD+, their repair is compromised. But exercise reverses this trend. Studies show that even individuals in their 60s and 70s can dramatically improve mitochondrial density and function through consistent high-intensity training. Not extreme, consistent, challenging, deliberate. The body responds to what it is required to do. Require nothing, it gives you less. Require effort, it rises. Metabolic flexibility becomes a cornerstone. The ability to shift between glucose and fat as fuel. This flexibility declines with constant feeding and sedentary behavior. But short fasting windows restore it. So does endurance training, when you walk briskly, when you cycle, when you move for extended periods. Your body relearns how to access stored energy. This reduces insulin resistance, reduces inflammation, improves mitochondrial communication, and supports NAD plus dependent repair. Inflammation is the background noise of aging, low grade, persistent, often invisible. It is sometimes called inflammaging. Chronic inflammation disrupts cellular signaling, damages tissues, accelerates epigenetic drift. Exercise lowers inflammatory cytokines. Sleep regulates immune balance. Omega-3 intake can modulate inflammatory pathways. But the most powerful anti-inflammatory strategy is systemic. Move daily, sleep deeply, eat strategically, expose yourself to natural light, limit constant stress. Psychological stress matters. Chronic cortisol elevation impairs sleep, raises blood sugar, suppresses immune function, increases inflammation. But stress itself is not the enemy. Unregulated stress is. Cold exposure teaches the nervous system to remain calm under discomfort. Breath control lowers sympathetic overactivation. Meditation alters stress reactivity at the neural level. These are not spiritual luxuries. They are biological interventions. Your nervous system talks to your immune system. Your immune system talks to your mitochondria. Your mitochondria depend on NAD+. It is all connected. After 50, you are no longer training for aesthetics. You are training for autonomy. Autonomy at 70, at 80, at 90. Strength predicts the ability to survive surgery, to recover from illness, to withstand hospitalization. Grip strength alone has been correlated with mortality risk across large populations, not because hands are magical, but because strength reflects total systemic health. Cardiovascular capacity matters, muscle mass matters, neural integrity matters, and all of them are influenced by behavior. The collapse of NAD+ is not a cliff, it is a slope, slow at first, then steeper, unless you change the angle. You change it through consistency, small daily signals. Lift, walk, sleep, fast with intention, seek sunlight. These signals accumulate. They tell your biology that survival still requires effort. And when survival requires effort, repair systems stay active. When repair systems stay active, aging slows, not halted, slowed. That is the power, not immortality. Longevity with function, longevity with clarity, longevity with strength. And it begins when you refuse to let your cells drift into silence. There comes a moment when you realize aging is not something happening to you. It is something happening within you. And what happens within you responds to demand. After 50, the body does not collapse overnight. It negotiates. It waits to see what you will require of it. Will you require strength or will you require comfort? Because comfort is seductive. Chairs replace movement, screens replace sunlight, snacks replace hunger, late nights replace darkness. And slowly, NAD plus continues its descent. Mitochondria lose sharpness, sirtuins fall quiet, repair slows, but demand reverses decline. When you walk with intensity, your heart rate rises, blood vessels dilate, nitric oxide increases, circulation improves. Oxygen delivery sharpens mitochondrial performance. When you lift resistance, muscle fibers call for reinforcement. Satellite cells activate. Protein synthesis increases. The body does not care about your age as much as it cares about the signal. The signal says adapt, and adaptation is youth. Light becomes medicine. Morning sunlight strikes the retina. Signals travel to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain. Cortisol rises naturally. Energy aligns with day. At night, darkness allows melatonin to surge. Melatonin protects mitochondria, reduces oxidative stress, supports NAD plus dependent repair. Disrupt this rhythm repeatedly, and aging accelerates. Honor it, and coherence returns. Coherence is biological harmony. The more coherent your rhythms, the less chaotic your internal signaling. Chaos accelerates entropy. Entropy accelerates aging. Sleep is where the rebuilding happens. Deep sleep increases growth hormone release. Muscle repairs. Immune cells recalibrate. The brain clears metabolic waste through the lymphatic system. Chronic sleep deprivation reduces insulin sensitivity within days. Inflammation rises. NAD plus repair pathways strain. Sleep is not passive, it is active reconstruction. And reconstruction keeps you viable. Purpose weaves through all of this. Those who live longest often share something intangible, a reason to wake. Purpose reduces stress reactivity. It regulates cortisol. It improves cardiovascular outcomes. It enhances immune resilience. When you believe your life still requires contribution, you move differently. Movement influences metabolism. Metabolism influences mitochondria. Mitochondria influence NAD+. It is all one loop. Identity shapes biology. If you see yourself as aging, fragile, declining, your behavior will reflect it. If you see yourself as adaptive, resilient, capable of rebuilding, your behavior changes. Behavior changes signaling. Signaling changes cellular function. After 50, this molecule collapses only if you let the signals fade. You cannot freeze time, but you can alter trajectory. You can increase mitochondrial demand through strength training. You can stimulate autophagy through structured fasting. You can regulate circadian rhythm through light discipline. You can enhance recovery through deep sleep. You can activate hormetic pathways through controlled exposure to heat and cold. You can consume adequate protein to preserve muscle. You can manage stress through breath and intentional pause. These are not hacks, they are biological levers. The body remains plastic longer than most believe, even in your 60s, even in your 70s. Studies show older adults can regain muscle mass, improve insulin sensitivity, enhance mitochondrial function. The decline is not linear unless you stop challenging it. NAD plus may fall with age, but its pathways remain accessible. Its influence remains powerful, and your actions determine how much of that power is expressed. Longevity is not about chasing an extra decade. It is about preserving function inside each year you already have. It is about walking into your 80s with strength in your legs and clarity in your mind. It is about rising from a chair without assistance, about carrying groceries, about thinking clearly, about staying independent. NAD plus is invisible. You will never see it, but you will feel its presence in energy, recovery, resilience. After 50, this molecule may collapse quietly. No headlines, no alarms, just subtle decline. Unless you intervene, unless you demand adaptation, unless you choose rhythm over chaos. effort over stagnation, recovery over burnout. Your biology is listening. Every day, it asks one silent question. Is this organism still required to adapt? Answer yes. Answer with movement. Answer with discipline. Answer with sleep protected and light respected. Answer with short discomfort embraced. Answer with protein consumed and muscles challenged. Because when you answer yes, repair awakens. Mitochondria sharpen. Sirtuins activate. NAD plus stabilizes. And aging slows its march. You are not powerless. You are programmable. And the code is written daily in how you live. After 50, the molecule may begin to fall, but collapse is not destiny. Adaptation is. Choose it, and your years ahead will not just be longer, they will be stronger.